At 4:00 a.m., my phone rang. My daughter-in-law's voice was calm as she said, "Your son is dead. I had him cremated. He left everything to me. You get nothing." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because something didn't add up. My son hated fire. He'd sworn his whole life that if anything happened to him, he wanted to rest beside his mother, buried not burned, never cremated. So I didn't book a flight to Hawaii to mourn. I booked one to uncover the truth, and what I discovered over the next 7 days shattered the lie she thought was perfect. Hello, and thank you for watching before I continue with the story of that fateful 4:32 a.m. phone call. Please let me know which city or country you're watching from by leaving a comment below. And please note, this story includes some fictional elements added to enhance emotional depth and educational value. Any resemblance to real names or settings is purely coincidental, but the message itself is completely true. The call came at 4:32 a.m. Pacific time, and I knew before I answered that my life was about to change forever. I'd been a cop for 35 years in Seattle. You develop instincts. The middle of the night phone call is never good news. I fumbled for my reading glasses, squinting at the screen. Scarlett, my daughter-in-law, calling from Hawaii. My heart already knew. "Martin," her voice came through shaky, but something about it felt rehearsed. "I have terrible news. It's Brian. He drowned yesterday during our sunset cruise in Maui." The words hit like a physical blow. My son, my only child. What happened when... Yesterday evening, we were on a boat and he slipped overboard. The current was so strong. The Coast Guard searched, but... She paused. "I'm so sorry. The funeral is already arranged. Cremation. Just like he always wanted." That's when the first alarm bell went off. Brian never wanted to be cremated. We'd talked about it after his mother passed. He wanted to be buried next to her someday under the big oak at Evergreen Cemetery. "Scarlett, I don't think..." "Oh, and Martin." She cut me off, her voice shifting to something colder. "About Brian's estate and the life insurance policy, it all comes to me. $3 million plus the house, everything. You should know that before you fly out here. The lawyers were very clear. You get nothing." Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark staring at my phone. The clock glowed 4:34 a.m. 2 minutes to shatter my world. Or at least that's what she wanted me to believe. Something was very, very wrong. Brian was a championship swimmer in high school, made state finals his junior year. Even at 40, he swam laps 3 times a week. The idea of him drowning on a tourist cruise was absurd. And that comment about the money. Who says that to a grieving father? Not, "I'm sorry for your loss." Not, "He went peacefully." But, "You get nothing," essentially a threat. I opened my messages. There it was. Brian's last text sent yesterday at 4:17 p.m. I hadn't seen it because I'd been at a friend's retirement dinner, phone on silent. "Dad, I need to talk. It's about Scarlett. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend? Supperstörst. Im Wurternbrod." My hands started shaking. I thought back 3 years to when Brian introduced us to Scarlett at Sunday brunch. She was beautiful, charming, said all the right things. But I'd felt something off. Maybe the way her smile never quite reached her eyes, or how she kept steering conversation back to Brian's job, his salary, his prospects at Microsoft. My wife Louise would have picked up on it immediately. She had incredible instincts about people, but Louise had been gone 10 years by then, and I'd learned to let Brian make his own choices. Even when those choices included marrying a woman who made my cop instincts buzz. I should have said something, should have pulled him aside, shared my concerns. But I'd kept quiet, told myself I was being overprotective. Now, my son was supposedly dead, and his wife's first priority was making sure I knew I wasn't getting any money. I stood at my bedroom window. Outside Queen Anne was still dark. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. I didn't book a flight to Hawaii, not yet. Instead, I did what I'd done for 3.5 decades. I started asking questions. The first question was simple. If Brian drowned yesterday evening, why was Scarlett so eager to tell me about the money before telling me how he died? I sat there in the dark, my cop instinct screaming. This wasn't grief in her voice. This was a performance, and I was going to find out why. Sleep was impossible after Scarlett's call. I sat at my kitchen table with black coffee as the sky lightened. At exactly 6 a.m., I called Roland Hughes. Roland and I went back 20 years on the Seattle force. He'd made detective the same year I did. "Martin, it's 6 in the morning. You'd better be calling because you won the lottery." I need a favor, Roland, a big one. His tone shifted. What's wrong? My son Brian. His wife says he drowned in Maui yesterday, but something's not right. I told him everything that calls Scarlett's coldness about the money, the cremation. Brian never wanted the text message I'd missed. Read me that text again, Roland said. I pulled up my phone. It says, Dad, I need to talk. It's about Scarlett. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend? Martin, I'm sorry, but you're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you? Yeah, I need you to run her. Everything. Full name, Scarlett Taylor. Maiden name, Turner. I'll call you back in an hour. It took 45 minutes. Now, Martin, sit down if you're not already. I stopped pacing. What did you find? Your daughter-in-law has been busy. 6 months ago, she took out a $3 million life insurance policy on Brian. Guess who the beneficiary is? Scarlett. That's a massive policy for a healthy 40-year-old. My stomach tightened. What else? This is where it gets strange. Scarlett was married before. A man named Michael Bradford. He died 2 years ago. The room tilted. How? Drowning accident. Bahamas vacation. Snorkeling. Body never recovered. Ruled accidental. Insurance? $1.5 million. I sat down hard. 2 husbands, Roland said quietly. 2 drownings. 2 payouts. That's a pattern. She killed them, I said. Michael Bradford and now Brian, if she hasn't already. We don't know that yet, but if your son is dead, this goes to the authorities. If he's not, then I need to find him. Fast. What do you need? Everything on Michael Bradford. Full case file. And everything on Scarlett Work Money Associates. I'll have it by noon. Martin, be careful. If she's done this before and thinks you're on to her, I know. After I hung up, I stared at Brian's text. It's about Scarlett. Something's not right. He'd known. He'd sensed the danger. And I hadn't listened. Guilt hit me hard. 3 years ago, when I first met Scarlett, I'd felt that cold warning in my spine. I ignored it, told myself I was being paranoid. Now Brian might be dead because I stayed silent. Roland called again at 11:30. I've got the Bradford file, and there's more. Scarlett's been making regular trips to Maui for 6 months. Always alone. Planning, I said. That's how it looks. I'm sending everything now. But you should involve the authorities. I will, after I know what happened to my son. I opened my laptop. Roland's email was already there. I clicked the Michael Bradford file first. The pattern was undeniable. Same method, same motive, same cold calculation. That afternoon at the precinct, Roland handed me a folder. No doubt anymore. Scarlett's first husband, Michael Bradford, died the same way. Drowning. Bahamas. Exactly. By noon, I was on a plane to Maui. The 5-hour flight gave me time to think, and the more I thought, the more convinced I became that my son was still alive. The pattern was too perfect. Michael Bradford in the Bahamas. Brian now in Maui. 2 drownings, 2 convenient accidents, no bodies. Scarlett had done this before and walked away clean. But this time she had me. I landed in Maui just after 7 p.m. The airport buzzed with tourists in bright shirts laughing and snapping photos. I pushed past them, rented a car, and drove straight to the resort where Brian and Scarlett had stayed. The Ocean Breeze Resort was postcard-perfect palm trees, an infinity pool, endless ocean views. Paradise. Except my son had supposedly drowned here 2 days earlier. I found the manager in the lobby. His nameplate read, Clayton Hart. I'm Martin Turner, I said. Brian Turner's father. His face shifted into practiced sympathy. I'm so sorry for your loss, sir. Your daughter-in-law has been absolutely devastated. I want to see her. She's in room 412. I can call up. Don't, I said. I'll surprise her. Something flickered in his eyes, but he nodded. In the elevator, my heart hammered. I hadn't seen Scarlett since the wedding. That day she'd worn white and smiled like an angel. Now I knew better. I knocked on room 412. Scarlett opened the door, wearing black yoga pants and a tank top. Her hair was pulled back mascara smeared beneath her eyes. Martin, she said, startled. I didn't expect you so soon. The cremation is already done. There's really no reason. I want to know what happened. Everything. She stepped aside. The room was chaotic, suitcase open clothes everywhere. She was packing. It was the sunset cruise, she said softly. Brian was taking pictures near the rail. A wave hit the boat, and he slipped. He went overboard. She gestured toward the dark ocean. The current was strong. By the time they turned back, he was gone. I watched her hands shake the tears gather. Convincing. Too convincing. Where's his body? The Coast Guard searched for 2 days. They said with these currents... She shook her head. So, no body, no death certificate. Something flashed in her eyes. Not yet. but they said one can be issued later. A lie, and she knew it. I'm going to the police, I said. They already know everything. I left. At the Maui Police Department, I was directed to Officer Timothy Holland, the Coast Guard liaison. He shook my hand. I'm sorry about your son. I was on the search. Is there a death certificate? No, sir. Without remains, it's a missing person. Under Hawaii law, it takes 7 years to declare death. 7 years. That meant Scarlett couldn't touch the insurance, not unless she produced a body. Outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop looking. He's gone. A friend. Someone was watching me. Which meant I was right. I looked up at the dark Hawaiian sky. Brian was out there somewhere, and whoever sent that message knew where. I wasn't stopping. I was just getting started. Every instinct I had as a detective told me this wasn't over. Too many lies rehearsed answers and fear behind her eyes. Whatever Scarlett planned depended on silence, distance, and time. I would give her none. The next morning after the threatening text, I knew I needed help. I'd been threatened before an occupational hazard after 35 years in law enforcement. But threatening me over my son was a mistake. I needed someone who knew Maui, someone who could dig where I couldn't, someone who understood how the islands worked. Everett Shaw's office sat above a surf shop on Front Street in Lahaina. The sign read, Shaw Investigations Discreet, Professional Results. Everett looked exactly like a former FBI agent turned private investigator. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, alert posture. He studied me the second I walked in. Martin Turner, he said. Retired Seattle PD. What brings you to my island? My son, Brian. His wife claims he drowned 4 days ago. I believe she's lying. I told him everything Brian's warning text, Scarlett's past with Michael Bradford, the Bahamas, drowning the insurance policy, and the threat sent to my phone. Everett leaned back, the fingers steepled. That's a clean pattern. What do you want from me? Everything. Scarlett's associates' finances movements. If Brian's alive, someone here knows where he is. Give me 24 hours. I don't have... You do, he said calmly. If I rush, I miss things. You know that. He called the next morning. Come now. I reached his office in 15 minutes. His laptop showed multiple windows. Scarlett's been involved with a man named Gavin Mercer, water sports instructor at your resort. A photo appeared late 30s, fit sun-darkened skin. They've been discreet, Everett continued, but not enough. He played security footage from the resort parking lot. Scarlett and Gavin stood beside a white pickup, kissing intimately. The timestamp showed 2 days before Brian supposedly drowned. There's more, Everett said. Gavin owns a boat, uses it for snorkeling and fishing charters, but he also makes trips to the outer islands. He pulled up booking records. On Sunday, the day Brian vanished, Gavin canceled all bookings, claimed he was sick. But his boat left harbor at 6 a.m. and returned after dark. My pulse spiked. Where did he go? Everett opened a satellite map. He usually stays near tourist waters, but 6 months ago, he began going here. He zoomed in. A private island 15 miles offshore, owned by a shell company. Another image appeared. Docked at a small pier was a familiar vessel. Same make, same model. This image is from yesterday morning, Everett said. That boat's been there 4 days, since Brian disappeared. My chest tightened. He's there. Everett nodded. I believe so, but we can't rush in. If they see us coming, they'll kill him. Exactly. We need eyes first. I stared at the island. Somewhere on that speck of land, my son was alive. When do we move? I asked. Tonight, Everett said. My boat, after midnight. Recon only. By dawn, we'll know. And then we call everyone. But first, certainty. I stood. Tonight, Everett enlarged the image once more. Martin, he said quietly, I think your son is still alive. I trusted my instincts completely now. Every step fit the pattern I'd chased my entire career. Scarlett needed time, distance, and secrecy. I would take all three away from her. The island, the boat, the lies, none of it was coincidence. Whatever waited offshore, I would face it. I wasn't leaving Maui without my son, no matter what it cost or how dangerous the truth became. That night around midnight, Everett and I stood on a dock in Lahaina, staring at a rented boat bobbing in the dark water. At 70 years old, I thought my days of stakeouts and dangerous operations were over. I was wrong. We loaded the boat with binoculars, a camera with a telephoto lens, and flashlights we hoped not to use. Everett checked his phone one last time, satellite coordinates glowing on the screen. 15 miles due east, he said quietly. About 45 minutes if we keep the engine low. Once we're close, we cut power and paddle in. You've done this before, I said. More times than I can count. You ready? I thought of Brian tied up somewhere on that island, scared, maybe hurt. Let's go. The ocean was calm beneath a quarter moon, just enough light to see without being seen. We moved slowly, the shoreline lights fading behind us. I checked my watch again and again. 12, 15, 12, 30, 12:45. At 12:50, Everett cut the engine. There he whispered. A dark shape rose from the water. As we drifted closer, details appeared: a small dock, a single wooden cabin set back from shore, one window glowing. We paddled the last 100 yards oars, dipping silently. My heart pounded so hard, I was sure it could be heard. We tied off at the far end of the dock, away from Gavin's boat. Everett scanned the cabin through binoculars. One window facing us. Lights on. No obvious cameras. Move slow. Stay low. We crept along the dock and crossed the rocky beach to the cabin's side. Voices drifted out. A man on the phone. Gavin. Everett signaled toward the window. I crouched and raised my head just enough to see inside. Brian lay on a narrow bed against the wall. Thin, pale, unshaven. His hands were tied to the frame with rope. He wasn't moving, but his chest rose and fell. Alive. My eyes burned. I forced myself to stay still. Gavin paced near the door phone, pressed to his ear. Another week, he said. That's enough time. Keep him sedated. When it's done, we make it look like he drowned trying to escape. Dump the body offshore and let the current do the rest. Same story as before. My fists clenched. I wanted to rush the door. Everett's hand crushed my shoulder. He shook his head. Wait. Gavin ended the call, then the door opened. Scarlett stepped outside. She wore jeans and a dark sweater, relaxed, smiling. Nothing like the grieving widow. She kissed Gavin. One more week, she said. Then we're free. $3 million free. You sure the old man bought it? Gavin asked. He bought it, she laughed. He's probably back in Seattle. There's nothing he can do. I almost stood up. Everett held me down. Scarlett glanced toward the water. For a second, her gaze swept past us. I froze. Did you hear something, she asked. Just waves, Gavin said. They went inside. The door shut. Everett pulled me back. We retreated to the dock, untied, and started the engine once we were clear. Neither of us spoke until the island faded behind us. I saw him, I said. He's alive. Yes, Everett said grimly. But if we rush this, they'll kill him. So, what do? We bring in the police, Coast Guard, everyone. We show them what we saw and let them take him safely. As Maui's lights reappeared, my hands shook with rage. I'd seen my son alive. I would not rest until Scarlett and Gavin, faced justice and son, walked free. Alive. Later that morning around 9, Everett and I walked into the Maui Police Department. I'd spent 35 years working with cops. Now, I needed them to trust me one more time to save my son's life. We barely slept after the recon. We couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brian tied to that bed, pale and thin, heard Gavin calmly planning his murder. We had maybe a week before they killed him. Maybe less. Captain Ernest Boyd met us in his office. Mid-50s gray hair, cut military short, the kind of man who'd seen everything and believed nothing without proof. Mr. Turner, he said, shaking my hand. I understand you have information regarding your son. Captain, my son is alive. He's being held on a private island 15 miles offshore. His wife and her accomplice plan to kill him within the week. Boyd's expression stayed neutral. That's a serious claim, kidnapping, conspiracy, insurance fraud. If you're wrong, I'm not. I saw him last night. Everett and I went to that island. You conducted your own reconnaissance, Boyd frowned. Necessary, I said, and we brought proof. Everett opened his laptop. 5 minutes, Captain. We showed him everything. Photos taken through the cabin window, Brian tied to the bed, unmistakably alive. An audio recording of Gavin's phone call. One more week, make it look like he drowned trying to escape. Then the history. Michael Bradford Scarlett's first husband drowned in the Bahamas. Ruled accidental. Insurance payout, $1.5 million. Next, Brian's policy. $3 million taken out 6 months ago. Beneficiary Scarlett. Finally, the resort security footage, Scarlett and Gavin kissing 2 days before Brian supposedly drowned. Boyd reviewed it all, making 2 quiet phone calls, cross-checking on his computer. At last, he stood. This is substantial, he said. The pattern alone is damning. He straightened. We move, but it's by the book. Water Police, SWAT, Coast Guard. We do this right. How long, I asked. 2 hours. Briefings, coordination, hostage rescue planning. 2 hours felt unbearable, but I understood. You don't rush an operation like this. I want to be there, I said. You're a civilian now, Boyd replied. Command boat only. No exceptions. I hated it, but he was right. At 10:45, we boarded 3 vessels, 2 Maui PD water police boats, and a Coast Guard cutter. 12 officers total, plus Everett and me. SWAT and tactical gear weapons ready. Boyd gave the final briefing. Hasted situation on a private island. 2 suspects armed and dangerous. 1 hostage condition unknown. Primary objective hostage safety. Yes, sir, the teams answered. Engines roared to life. I stood on the command boat deck, watching Maui shrink behind us. Somewhere ahead, Brian was waiting. We were coming. The crossing took 30 minutes. I scanned the horizon with binoculars. Then I saw it. Black smoke thick and rising against the blue sky. Captain, I shouted. Boyd grabbed his radio. All units, heavy smoke at target location. This is now a rescue operation. Full speed. The boat surged forward. My heart pounded. The cabin was burning. Brian was inside. We were out of time. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know. Do you think I got there in time? Will my son survive? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. One more thing. The story ahead includes some dramatized elements for impact. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. But if you want the truth about what a father will do to save his son, keep watching. Minutes later, as we closed in on the island, flames burst through the cabin roof. Fire licked into the night sky, thick smoke rolling upward. Officers shouted commands over the engines, but all I could think was that my son was inside that inferno. The boat slammed into the shore. Police poured out weapons, raised voices sharp and controlled. Maui PD hands up. Nobody move. Scarlett and Gavin were already running toward the dock, aiming for Gavin's boat. They froze when they saw 3 police vessels and armed officers surrounding them. There was nowhere left to run. I didn't wait. Every instinct drilled into me over 35 years screamed to hold position to let SWAT handle it, to follow protocol. I ignored every one of them. I ran straight for the burning cabin. Martin, no, Everett shouted behind me, but I didn't slow down. The heat hit me 10 feet from the door, a wall of scorching air that burned my eyes. Smoke poured out thick and black. I yanked my shirt over my mouth and lunged inside. It was hell. I couldn't see. I could barely breathe. Smoke clawed at my lungs. Fire crackled along the walls, devouring the old wood. The ceiling groaned, ready to collapse. Brian, I shouted, but my voice vanished into the roar. I dropped low, crawling where the air was thinner. My hands hit the bed frame, then rope, then skin. Brian. He lay unconscious, tied to the bed face, pale in the firelight. I clawed at the ropes, but my hands shook too badly. Smoke, heat, panic, I couldn't make them work. Then Everett appeared through the haze knife, flashing. 3 fast cuts, and the ropes fell away. Go, he yelled. I've got his legs. I grabbed Brian under the arms. He was limp, heavy, lifeless weight. Together we staggered toward the door, smoke so thick I couldn't tell where it was. Then fresh air hit my face. We burst out and collapsed on the sand. Paramedics rushed in. I rolled aside as they worked. No, pulse, someone shouted. No, 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 no. They started CPR, compressions, breaths, again and again. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. We were so close. Then Brian coughed. A violent cough ripped through him. His eyes flew open, terrified. Dad, he whispered. I was beside him instantly. I'm here, you're safe. His hand found mine and squeezed weakly. I broke down. Behind us, Scarlett screamed. Officers dragged her toward a boat, cuffs biting into her wrists. She fought, yelling incoherently. Gavin tried to flee, diving into the water. The Coast Guard intercepted him and hauled him out like a netted fish. Both caught, finished. Paramedics loaded Brian onto a stretcher. Smoke inhalations, possible internal injuries. We're calling a helicopter. I'm going with him, I said. They nodded. While we waited, I walked to where Scarlett sat guarded. She saw me and exploded. He wanted this, she screamed. He wanted to disappear. I stopped in front of her. Captain Boyd stood nearby. I looked at the woman who'd married my son, tied him up, and left him to burn. My son is alive, I said quietly, and you're finished. Her face drained of color. She had nothing left to say. The helicopter arrived, rotors churning smoke into spirals. They loaded Brian in. I climbed after him, never releasing his hand. As we lifted off, I looked down. The cabin collapsed inward, smoke rising into the perfect blue sky. Police surrounded Scarlett and Gavin on the beach. It was over. Brian squeezed my hand again. Dad, he whispered. You found me. Always, I said. I'll always find you. 3 days later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Brian was finally strong enough to talk. I sat beside his hospital bed at Maui Memorial, holding his hand, while Captain Boyd pulled up a chair with his recording device. My son had lost 15 pounds in 7 days, his cheekbones sharp, his skin pale against the white sheets. But his eyes were clear, alert, ready to tell the truth. Boyd pressed record. "Mr. Turner, in your own words, please describe what happened." Brian's voice was hoarse but steady. 2 months ago, I found text messages on Scarlett's phone. She was having an affair with Gavin Mercer, a water sports instructor at the resort where we'd been staying. When I confronted her, she denied everything, told me I was paranoid. He paused, swallowing hard. "I was going to file for divorce. I'd already contacted a lawyer in Seattle. And the life insurance policy," Boyd asked. "That was her idea, 6 months ago." Brian's jaw tightened. "She said we needed it for our future, $3 million. She insisted I name her as the sole beneficiary. I thought she was thinking about us, about security." I felt my chest tighten. The pieces were always there. We just didn't see them until it was too late. "Walk me through last Sunday," Boyd said gently. Brian closed his eyes, remembering. "Gavin invited me out fishing, said we should bond man to man. Scarlett encouraged it. She even packed us lunch." His voice cracked. "On the boat, Gavin handed me a beer. I remember the taste was off, bitter, and then nothing." "You were drugged." "Yeah, when I woke up I was on that island, tied to a bed. They were both there, Scarlett and Gavin. They weren't hiding anymore." Brian's hands trembled. "That Scarlett looked at me like I was already dead. She told me they'd been planning this for months. They were going to keep me sedated for a week, then stage my drowning, make it look like an accident." Boyd leaned forward. "What happened during that week?" "They kept me there, gave me sedatives twice a day to keep me weak. Scarlett would come in and talk to me, tell me how much money she'd get. How she and Gavin were going to disappear to Costa Rica with the payout." His voice hardened. "She said no one would ever find me, that the ocean would take care of the evidence. And the morning of the rescue, I heard helicopters, sirens. Gavin panicked. He started shouting that they had to get rid of me, but there wasn't time." Brian's eyes met mine. "That's when he set the fire. He was going to let me burn." Boyd made a note. "Mr. Turner, based on your testimony and the evidence we've collected, Scarlett Turner has been charged with first-degree kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and first-degree arson. Gavin Mercer faces identical charges plus aggravated assault for administering the sedatives without consent." Brian exhaled slowly. Then he looked at me. "You saved my life, Dad." I squeezed his hand. "You texted me about Scarlett. I knew something was wrong. I trusted my gut." "You always told me to do that," Brian said softly. "Trust your instincts." Boyd stood, switching off the recorder. "We'll need you back in Seattle for the trial, but for now, rest. You've been through hell." After Boyd left, Brian looked out the window at the Maui coastline, the place that had almost killed him. "I want to go home, Dad. Back to Seattle. I need to start over. And I need to be close to family." I nodded, my throat tight. "Then let's go home." 3 months later, on a warm June evening, Brian and I sat on the back porch of my house in Queen Anne, watching the sun sink into Puget Sound. He'd moved into my guest room temporarily after Maui, but neither of us was rushing that arrangement. The truth was simple. We both needed the quiet, the routine, and each other. We'd settled into an easy rhythm. Most nights we cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy, just grilled salmon and vegetables, the kind of simple meals Louise used to make. On Saturdays, we walked to Pike Place Market, bought fresh coffee, and watched the fishmongers toss salmon across the ice. Seattle felt like home again for both of us. Brian went to therapy twice a week, working through what he called the island. He didn't say much about it, and I didn't push. But I noticed the changes. His hands no longer shook when he held a mug. His smiles came more easily. He slept through the night without jolting awake drenched in sweat. He'd found a new job too, software engineering for a Portland company fully remote. He worked from my kitchen table or the porch laptop, open the sound stretching out in front of him. He was rebuilding piece by piece, slowly but truly. Late at night, I sometimes thought about Louise. 10 years gone, yet her voice still felt close. I remembered the hospital room, the soft beeping machines, her hand warm in mine. She'd looked at me and said, "Martin promised me something. Take care of our son, no matter what, even when he thinks he doesn't need you." Always I'd said, "I promise." "And trust your instincts," she whispered. "You always know what's right." I'd kept that promise, even when it seemed reckless flying to Maui on a hunch hiring a PI pushing police to raid an island based on a father's gut. I trusted my instincts and I brought my son home alive. The trial lasted 2 months. Brian testified, reliving everything in front of strangers. But the evidence was overwhelming: recordings, photos, insurance documents, and the file on Michael Bradford. Scarlett's plan unfolded in brutal clarity. She was sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and arson. The judge called her a danger to society and denied parole. Gavin received 15 years. He cooperated, testified against her, and the prosecutor labeled him a follower. Still, he'd helped drug my son, imprison him, and try to burn him alive. 15 years felt merciful. Both were in federal prison now. I didn't think about them. They weren't worth the space. Instead, Brian and I started something new, the Louise Turner Fund. Using part of my pension, we helped victims of financial exploitation and domestic abuse. People betrayed by those they trusted. It gave us purpose. It gave Louise's name a future. That evening, Brian set down his beer and watched the water turn gold and pink. I used to think family meant paperwork and vows, he said. Scarlett taught me what it isn't. So what is it, I asked. He smiled softly. It's showing up, not giving up, trusting your gut when it sounds crazy. He looked at me. You're what family means. My throat tightened. Your mom would be proud. I know, he said. She's watching. We sat in silence as the skyline glowed. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Looking back, I understand now that God places warnings in our hearts long before danger shows its face. When that call came at 4:32 a.m., something inside me tightened quietly, saying, pay attention. I could have brushed it off as grief or shock. I could have followed the script Scarlett wanted me to follow. But God didn't give me decades as a detective just to chase criminals. He gave me discernment to see darkness hiding behind sympathy. So here's my advice: don't do what I almost did. Don't dismiss that inner alarm when someone you love may be in danger. Don't let fear of being wrong keep you silent. God doesn't whisper warnings by mistake. Sometimes his protection doesn't come as a miracle. It comes as an uncomfortable feeling you're meant to trust. The lesson I carry forward, and the one I now pass on through Grandpa's stories, is simple but powerful. Family is proven by presence, not paperwork. Real family steps forward when everything is on the line. Real faith means trusting God's direction, even when it leads you off the safe, logical path. My son is alive because I listened to God, to instinct, and to a father's refusal to accept a lie. If this family story's journey spoke to you, I invite you to leave a comment and share what it meant to you. Subscribe to the channel and send this video to someone who needs to hear Grandpa's stories about courage, faith, and standing firm when it matters most. These family stories exist for one reason: to pass down wisdom that can protect the people we love. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. And a small note before we continue: the next Grandpa stories may include some fictional elements added for educational purposes. If that's not what you're looking for, feel free to explore other family stories that resonate more with you. May God watch over you and your loved ones.